Okay, hello. I'm going to go through a whole list of knots and I'm going to show you how to tie them the correct way, the wrong way, or simply an inferior version of it. We're going to go through the bowline, the running bowline, the bowline on the Bight, bowline with the Yosemite Tie-Off, a double bowline, the alpine butterfly, the marlin spike, the double fisherman's knot, the double overhand stopper knot, the single figure eight, the cow hitch, the timber hitch, the girth hitch, the munter's hitch, the Blake's hitch, the English Prussic knot, the scaffold knot or poacher's knot. What else is there? The clove hitch. Okay, this is the marlin spike. Grab the rope with your thumb facing down, roll up, and then I reach my fingers through and grab the rope above. Tighten that up, and there's my marlin spike. Now I can clip a chainsaw to it or whatever, and when I send it up, they pull up and it simply gets tighter. So it's a running single overhand or a running granny's knot. And then that can be pulled up to the top and the climber can just pull it out. It can be tied in correctly if you do your loop but you don't reach up, you reach down. In which case when you click a chainsaw or any weight onto it, when they pull it up, it can come undone. Not likely, but it's possible. You may as well do it the right way. So when would I tie it upside down? Okay, I would tie this upside down when I'm using a rigging rope and it's going through a pulley. So let's say this is the anchor, okay, and this is the rigging rope. And I'm the grounder here. I've got this rigging rope, I've just untied it and I want to send it back up to the climber, but I don't want it to whip through the pulley and then being upset. So what I can do is before I send it up, I tie a marlin spike, but I tie it upside down. So I reach down and pull it like that. So what happens then is when it gets pulled up to the pulley, it gets caught in the pulley and can't go through until the climber can swing along, and you can leave this tail however long it needs to be so the climber doesn't have to go all the way back up to the top. They can grab this tail and they can simply pull it out and use it for anything. So another reason why you'd use a marlin spike is if you are pulling the rigging rope up and you want to tie it around a branch, but the rope keeps pulling down out of your hands, a lot of weight. So you simply tie a marlin spike in it and then it pulls up against a pulley or a ring or a carabiner on your harness, and then you got this tail you can tie around a tree and do whatever you want with. And when you're ready, you can simply pull it out and you're off to the races. Okay, so now let's do a bowline. And we need to hold it in our hand with the tail is on my palm coming down here and my thumb is facing towards the lead line or the tree. So now what I want to do, just simply wrap it around my hand like this and then close my hand. Now, if I pull this around, I've got my loop. That's my loop. I don't want to move this hand in any way to compromise the direction or anything. I just hold it like that, okay? Now I grab my tail and I want to bring it up out of the hole. Straight up, not down into the hole, straight up out of the hole, and I want to pull that through until my loop is the size I want it. I don't pull it all the way through because I've lost my loop. I want it about that size. Now the rabbit will go directly around the back of the tree, straight out of the hole, directly around the back, not over the front, it goes around the back. Once it's gone around the back, it then goes back down its hole. So rabbit comes up out of the hole, around the back of the tree, back down the hole. And to tighten it, I grab these two and I pull it tight. So I've tied it, now I'm dressing it and setting it. Pull the knot from all sides. And that is a correct bowline. The tail, you can check, is coming out the inside of the knot. That's a bowline. So I'll show you how it's tied incorrectly. So what you'll do is you'll make your loop. But the trouble is some people make the loop backwards. Some people turn it around. It's fine as long as the result ends up correct. If I tie this up now, go around the tree and back down the hole, oh, it's not a knot because I lost my loop. Okay, I want to go thumb up the tree, around the back of the hand, grab hold of it, there's my loop. Rabbit comes up out of the hole, And now this is where people can go wrong as well. Instead of going directly around the back of the tree, they'll go around the front of the tree, and then the rabbit goes back down the hole. Dress it. Is this still a bowline? Yes, but it's up for debate, but generally what I've found is this is an inferior knot. I've seen people testing these knots, and in these very old books, this is an inferior bowline, or bowline if you're one of those purist yachting people who gives me hell on the internet. A bowline, ugh. It's a bowline. Okay, so that's incorrect. You must go around the back of the tree and back down the hole. And that is a bowline. So now let's do a running bowline. So I want to tie this rope around the tree, and I want it to cinch off tight. So what I'll do first is I'll pass the rope around the tree. Okay, so now I've got the rope around the tree. So as you can see, I've got a tail. Forget about this for now. I want to start my bowline. Remember, wrap it around your hand, close the fist. There's my loop. Now before this rabbit comes up out of the hole, I want to capture this rope over here. See, I've simply gone around that rope, and now I simply finish my bowline. Rabbit comes up out of the hole, round the back of the tree, back down the hole. Tighten up, tie, dress, set and finish, and now I've got a running bowline. So let's say I want to put my life on this. A bowline on its own, or a running bowline on its own, is not designed for life support. It will hold you, but in a lot of standards, it's not for life support. You'd have to do a couple of things. If I wanted to use this running bowline as a life support knot, I can do this. Tie my bowline, rabbit goes out of the hole, around the tree, back down the hole. Now this is not a life support knot on its own. If I wanted to turn this into a life support knot, I could simply tie a stopper knot in the end here. So now I've tied a double overhand stopper knot in the end of that bowline. Now it is a life support knot. The other option is to tie a Yosemite Tie-Off. So what I do is I get the bowline and I loosen it off a touch. The tail's coming out the inside, but I want this tail to eventually come out with the lead line here. I'm going to send it around the back, around the outside, and as you can see, I'm putting it up against this rope here and I'm running it around, back in, and then out the top. So, once I tie, dress, set and finish this knot, I can look at it. I've got the tail and the lead line here going into the knot. Now if I look at them, I can check to see if it's correct. I can see they're side by side the whole way around the knot. So that is called a Yosemite Tie-Off. You don't need a stopper knot, but you can get rid of the tail with some half hitches if you like. If you're having trouble tying this, because you might have it over this way or over that way or upside down or something, reverse engineer it. I want the tail to come out next to this. So if I follow this into the knot with my finger, it goes around there, then it goes around here, and then it goes around here, then it goes back to the loop. So this is where I want to start my Yosemite Tie-Off. So I get this tail, and that's where I want to start it, side by side. The whole way around, it's always contacting that rope. And if I feed it up here, it's still contacting it. I need to dress it a little bit better, but that's how you do a Yosemite Tie-Off. So this is a double bowline. What I want to do is I want to wrap it around my hand, just like a single bowline, but I want to go twice. Now I've got two loops. Now the rabbit comes up out of the holes, round the back of the tree, and back down the holes. And then I tie, dress, set and finish just like I would a normal knot. Now the beauty of this knot for rigging is that when the force comes in and pulls, because this section here is pulling, it comes in and it wraps around these ropes twice, okay? And then it comes down in the loop, therefore spreading the force over 2 wraps. So this is why it's a very good rigging knot. Now let's do a bowline on the Bight. Let's say I have a rope and I want to tie this rope onto a D-shackle or a bow shackle or something on an excavator and pull a tree over. Or for some reason I want to tie mid-line and be able to anchor off it. and really put some weight on it. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to go midline. I want to pull out a bight of rope like this, and now I want to tie a bowline with a bight instead of a single tail. So I'm holding both the ropes, and I go about it the same way as before. I hold the rope with my thumb pointing towards a tree, I wrap this around like that, I grab hold of it, and there's my loop. It can get a little bit messy, but it's very, very simple. I want to get the bight, which was for a single bowline, a single piece of rope, but it's a bight of rope. The rabbit pops its head up out of the hole, but this is where it changes. Okay, I don't pull that all the way through. What I want to do is I want to poke my hand through the rabbit's head, and I want to reach down and grab the loop underneath here. Once I've grabbed hold of it, I can drop the rest. I've got hold of that, the rabbit's head loop that's over my wrist. I simply pull it over everything, and I want to pull it down quite hard. Okay, once I've pulled it down, the knot will orientate the correct way, and now I can tighten up this running bowline. Tighter, set and finish, okay? So that is a running bowline, and I can check to make sure it's correct by making sure no pieces pull out. Now let's tie it incorrectly. So you do the same thing, you make your loop, rabbit comes up out of the hole, your hand reaches down through the rabbit's head, grabs the bottom, and then you pull this over the hand there, but now this is where it changes. What I'm meant to do is pull this down until this section in here flicks over. But what I'm not going to do now is I'm just going to pull it tight. So this is the same knot dressed differently, okay? And you can see the difference. If I put load on this, it simply pulls through. So it's the same knot dressed improperly. So now I can retie it, or I can simply change it. And watch this, if I grab this bottom bit here and I pull hard, this bit here will orientate around. I'll try and do it so it flicks around. Okay, so now I've pulled this down appropriately, and now to tighten it, I want to pull one side of the loop, and now it's secured in. So now this is safe as houses. I can't pull anything through. It's done correctly. Now, the problem is it is hard to undo if you put proper load on it, like a truck. So how you can fix that is, I just want to get a little stick, something relatively soft, not some hard bit of metal, or don't put a chainsaw spanner in. Something that if it does break and fly off, it's not going to cause too much damage. I simply pull back this section and I poke it in there. So the bit that you pull down over your wrist, poke this in there, and then retighten the knot. So is it dodgy? Yes, a little bit dodgy, but this means that you will get that knot undone very, very easily. Let's tie a stopper knot in the end of our climbing rope. You must have a stopper knot in the end of the climbing rope, otherwise you might be lowering yourself down. Whoop, you're off the bottom. So let's tie a double overhand stopper knot. What I want to do is I want to grab the rope in my hand, point my finger towards the tail. I'll give myself about that much tail. It depends on where you tie the knot is where you put your finger, but about that much will do. Now I want to look at my finger here. This is the first knuckle near my fingernail. First knuckle, second knuckle. So I want to get the tail and I want to wrap it, doesn't matter which way you go, over the first knuckle. Then I want to wrap it again and I want to go over the second knuckle, and you can see there's a crossover here. Now the third time, I don't go over. The third time what I do is I pull my finger out. Once the finger's been pulled out, I can then poke the tail through that hole. And this is a double overhand stopper knot. And this is what you need in the ends of your ropes to catch your life. How it is tied incorrectly. Point your finger towards the tail, and if you don't do first knuckle then second knuckle, you do second knuckle then first knuckle, there's no crossover. So if I pull my finger out now and poke the rope through, this is an inferior knot. It can, under load, roll itself undone. So do I need to retie it? No, this is just dressed incorrectly. So what I need to do is just loosen it off a little bit and pop that rope over so there is a crossover, and then retighten it. Now this can happen even if you tie it correctly. So if I tie it correctly, first knuckle, second knuckle, but then what happens is when I'm going to poke this through, it kind of moves itself. So that's incorrect. So there's no crossover. I need to loosen it off and bounce that knob over there. Now it's tied correctly. That is a double overhand stopper knot. Let's do what's called a scaffold knot. So a scaffold knot, instead of having the main rope and my finger pointing towards the tail, what I want to do is I want to get a bight of rope. Get a bight of rope in the back here, and I want to hold that bight with my little finger. So now I've got hold of the rope and I've got a bight on my little finger. Now I've got a tail out this way, and I'm simply going to do a very similar tie to the double overhand. I'm going to point towards that tail, and I'm going to get my rope. I'm going to go over the first knuckle, and I'm going to capture this rope in. I'm going to go over the second knuckle, and then the third time, just like before, I'm going to pull my finger out and poke the tail through. So now, if I do that up tight, I can now hook that onto a carabiner and it should cinch up tight. So it's a cinching knot for carabiners. The reason it's so good is because it will cinch tight around a carabiner and it will reduce the risk of the carabiner side loading or causing problems with the gate. It stays tight. That is a life support knot. Okay, so that's a scaffold knot or a poacher's knot with way too much tail. Now the alpine butterfly knot is a knot that's tied in many, many different ways. This is the easiest way to learn how to do it. So I want to face my thumb up the rope or away from me, and I want to have the tail or the other end coming towards me. Now this is a midline knot. You shouldn't be tying this at the end of your rope. So the easiest way is face your thumb up, wrap it around your hand 3 times. Doesn't matter which hand you use, which way you go. But what I've got now is I've got one rope on my thumb side and one rope on my fingers side. So what I want to do with this, the rope that's on my thumb side, I simply move that over to my finger side. So once I've done that, I then look at it and I've got this rope is now on my thumb side. So that one there that is now on my thumb side, I want to take over to my fingers like that and then pass it back under everything. Grab that and pull it through. Now a problem here is when people tighten them up, they tighten them up like this. Don't do that. Leave it relatively loose, and this is how you tighten it up. Okay, this is how you set it in place. So let's do that again. Wrap it 3 times on your hand, the one on my thumb side, put it on my fingers, and now the one on my thumb side, I pull it a bit over my fingers and then underneath. Now if I tie this incorrectly, I'm going to tighten it like this. Pull that tight. And now that's not, well, it is actually going to come up, but you can dress it wrong. You need to pull it sideways like this. And now I've got a life support loop that I can use midline. Another way to tie the alpine butterfly. This is the way I like to do it. So I want to get a bight of rope. I want to twist it once and then twist it twice. So I've got 2 crossovers and I've got a hole in the middle. So now what I want to do is I want to hold all this tight. I essentially want this head here to go between the legs and, for lack of a better term, up the bum. That hole that we created between the 2 loops. Okay, tighten it up. So I'll do that again a bit quicker. So you make it 1, 2 twists between the legs, up the bum. Tighten it like that. There we go. Oh, not tightened properly, but I just need to dress the knot. You need to dress and set every knot. What's going on there? Doesn't look right, but it is right. Okay, so this is an English prusik loop. Ideally, you want this to be suited to your length of arms and harness setup. This is the perfect length for me. If you're going to go buy this, buy a few meters of it because you'll always use it and it's relatively cheap by the meter. This is the high friction non-burn stuff. Don't bother buying this unless you're going to be working on a prusik up and down a tree all the time. If you run a zigzag or a mechanical device, then don't bother buying the high friction, non-burn stuff, okay? Just buy cheap prussic. This, I would buy an extra few meters, and to get the distance right, it's from your thumb to your shoulder, okay? That's the length. So that's my perfect length. So when I'm English prussic body thrusting up the rope, I can easily reach up high and grab it. So I need to join this. I would buy a few meters of it, and I would tie this English prussic with a tail here, and I would have a longer tail on there until I adjusted it and changed it so that it was the perfect length for my body, and then I would chop it and leave it. I want to tie this English prussic loop here into a double fisherman's. Okay, so I'll show you on a bigger rope with two different colors to make it easier. So now I've got two ropes I want to join together. I'll put these together like this with one tail facing one way, one tail facing the other way. Now it's very similar to the scaffold knot, the double overhand stopper knot. Okay, once I've got my ropes like this, I will grab it in the middle and I will put however much tail you need, about that much should do. Now I want to point my finger towards the tail, and I want to do similar to the scaffold knot. I want to go, let's go this way. I've got to capture this rope. So first knuckle, then second knuckle, and then I want to pull my finger out, poke this through. Again, making sure it's all dressed correctly. Okay, so that is one side. Now the trick to this is turn the whole knot around and do the exact same thing. So my finger's pointing towards the tail again. I now want to do the exact same thing I did before. Don't wrap it the opposite way. That's why swapping it around in your hand is so good, because you can do it the exact same way. First knuckle, second knuckle, pull my finger out, poke the tail through. Okay, now I can tighten this knot up so I can set it. And when I set it, I've got these two knobs here. This little knob on the inside and this little knob on the inside. I need to make sure that they sit flush in there. They're opposing, one on one side, one on the other. So now I'll show you how to tie it incorrectly. So this is how to tie it incorrectly. Point my finger towards this. I could tie it incorrectly by not going around that rope. That's one way. Or I could tie it incorrectly by not doing that crossover. But the main way people tie this incorrectly, they don't bother turning it around. They just do it on the other side. So let's see how this turns out. First knuckle, second knuckle, then I can pull that out, poke it through. So it's a 50-50 chance I got this right. Let's see what happens. So when I pull it tight, I can see it's not sitting flush. So if I twist it around here so you can see it, these knobs on the inside are opposing each other. They're not sitting flush. So to fix this, which I did probably most of my career till I found out the trick of twisting it around and doing it the exact same way, I simply want to undo one side, and whatever way I wrapped it, I'll then wrap it the other way. So you don't have to undo the whole knot and guess, you just do this. Should fix that tail up. And then when I pull it in, it should sit nice and flush. So that is your double fisherman's. All right, so let's tie our English prussic onto the rope. Now, what I want to do is I want to attach this to the rope so it will provide friction and I can slide it up and down, but also climb on it. This is the best way to tie it. I get my knot, my double fisherman's knot, and I want to have that up the top, out of the way. And I want to make my top wraps first. So I hold it tight, I grab my knot and I pass it through once, hold that wrap, twice, hold that wrap. If I wanted to do more wraps, I could if I wasn't holding. Now I've got these top 3 wraps here. I hold those tight, the knot's out of the way. I simply just pull the rest up and jiggle it a bit. Okay, now when I've tied my English prussic and I've got this bridge going all the way over to the outsides, I now have my knot completely out of the way. And now I can climb on this. I never want this knot to be down here. So let's do that again. So really easily, up there, once, twice, hold it tight, pull it up, and it generally dresses itself correctly too. Okay, if it's not gripping, if a prusik is not gripping and I tighten it up and it's not gripping and I need more friction, I simply loosen it up and I put another wrap in. So now it's an English prusik with an extra wrap. The trouble with this is there's more friction, okay? So it's harder to push up. The benefit is there's more friction. If it's not grabbing, it will grab like this, but be wary, putting too many wraps on will make it harder to tend and move around, okay? And the beauty of this prusik is I can tie it on like that and I can hold weight down or I can hold weight up and it will still slide. This is a girth hitch. If I want to join this prusik to this carabiner, I don't want to just clip it through because when I'm loading it and unloading it, it can side load, it can grab the gate, it can undo, it can cut the rope with the gate, this can get caught, all these sorts of trouble. So I want to secure it to this carabiner. So I want to tie a girth hitch. Now this is a girth hitch. You put your 2 fingers through like that, and then I want to open them up and roll them up and pinch them at the top. Then I can pull these ropes down. So people call it, I believe, a lark's foot as well. That's a girth hitch. So let's do that again. So poke your fingers through, roll them up, pinch the rope, pull that down. I've got myself a girth hitch. Now I can girth hitch my carabiner on, nice and tight. Not as good as a clove hitch, but it works pretty good to not bounce around. Now, what I want to do is I want to girth hitch it up here. So I'll take that off, and this is how I girth hitch it onto my carabiner. I'll put it right up near the knot like this, tighten it up, and that's how I like to pull off my English prusiks and have them pre-girth hitched onto my carabiner, okay? Now to hang it off my harness, I'm going to twist it around as much as I can, just keep twisting. Okay, not good for a climbing rope to twist them like that. Prusik will be fine. And then I've got that, I can secure that into my harness and use it for a redirect, a rescue, or another climbing system. And then to use it, I simply unclip it and shake it out, done. So if you're having trouble tying the English prusik onto your rope, set up your English prusik like this. Have your carabiner girth hitched near the knot. Now this is the easiest way for people to learn how to do it. You get the carabiner and the loop like this, and you simply pass the carabiner through the loop. Once, twice. Okay, and then I pull that tight. So now I've got my English prusik loop tied. My knot's not a problem because I've got my carabiner pre-installed. But I've got to dress this. You can see this is dressed incorrectly. So I've got to make sure this bridge goes to the outside. And then I can tighten it up and use it. And there we have it. Prusik pre-installed with a carabiner and the knot out of the way. How you lower these prusiks, you grab the top and you pull down. And how you set them is you pull this down and it won't go anywhere. Okay, so this is a munter's hitch. If I wanted to rappel down this rope using just a carabiner, I could tie what's called a munter's hitch. So there's many different ways to tie this. I'll show you the simplest way. Make a loop, just like this, and I need to have a crossover. See this here? A cross. Once I've got that cross, I can then grab these 2 here, pinch it, and where my 2 fingers are pinching, that's where I clip my carabiner. Over both of those. Now, potentially, I could move it up, but I could also lower down. Now this has a bit of a problem. This rope is running over the gate. So what I need to do is run it this way. So when I'm lowering it down or rappelling down, I don't have this rope here running on my gate. Now this could be used in so many different orientations and directions. It could be used back up like that, however you want to use it, but this is the basic way to tie it. Make a crossover, and I can grab either these 2 or these 2, it doesn't matter. But if I make a crossover like that, and then I fold that around and I pinch these two, essentially capturing one of the ropes in that. Clip my carabiner on the two that I'm pinching, we're off to the races. Again, if I was to use it in this orientation, I can't use it like that. I've got to swap it over. Make sure that's not running on the gate. This carabiner is very good because it's got a lot of room up here. This shaped carabiner, a wide carabiner. So you can see, if I need to change direction with this carabiner, the whole knot has to flick through. Okay, see this knot? It flicks through like that. So if you're performing a rescue or you haven't orientated it correctly before loading it up, these carabiners are better for it because that can flick through. Now, if you've got a different carabiner that isn't wide at the end, it's like an oval shape, I'll show you the difference. So the good thing about these oval shaped ones is that if it is running on the gate, I can just twist it around without undoing anything. And now I'm fine. The trouble comes into these carabiners with such a narrow end on it. If this knot needs to flick through, it can get jammed. Okay, so just like that, it can jam in. And I'm talking you have to load it up properly. It can get jammed so it won't flick over. So if you're in the hunt for new carabiners, don't have all the same type. Have a few different types because they're used for different things. But that is a munter's hitch. I simply apply a little bit of friction on my hand here and I can hold myself up. It's the same as like a figure eight. Perfect for rescues. However, not great for your rope. Let's say I need to get down to a point and whatever branch I'm on won't hold my weight. So I need to triangulate my weight from here to over here. And I've got this branch here. So what I can do is I can use my English prusik that I always carry. So I could use my English prusik and make another system. I could use my flip line, provided it was long enough to make another system. However, let's assume that it's a longer system. My English prusik is being used in a redirect and my flip line just isn't long enough. So let's try a Blake's hitch. Now for this, I'm gonna have to grab the other end of my rope, which is a lot, bloody hell. Okay, so for this knot, I can use the tail of my climbing line to help me triangulate. So what I wanna do is pass the tail over whatever I wanna tie it around. And I can use this for rescues, whatever. So now I've got essentially a rope looping over another high point, and I've got a tail and a lead line. So what I can do here is I could use a carabiner, but I'll do it without a carabiner just to show you how it's done. I can tie a clove hitch onto my rings. I want to bring it out there. So I want to tie a clove hitch onto my ring with an extra tail, a pretty long tail. So the beauty of a clove hitch is I can do this. I can wrench it like that and give myself more tail. Now for this knot, I want to have a lot of tail because it takes up a lot of rope. So I can even wrench this out a bit more and get more tail. I can tighten that up later. So now I want to tie a Blake's hitch. And how I want to do this, I have a fair bit of tail. I want to put my tail over the main line and wrap up 4 times. So once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. So on the 4th time, I've got 4 wraps. I want to bring the tail and I want to pass it between this one and this one. So if I go between those two, I'm pretty good. Now, the tail, I want to bring up and out these bottom 2 here. So straight up and out there. Okay, now this is the Blake's hitch. Okay, I don't want to dress it too tightly because to tighten this up, I really want to put weight in it and set it. It's not finished though, because I need to put a stopper knot in the end here. Now I can tie a double overhand stopper knot, or I can just tie simply a figure 8. A figure 8 is a legitimate stopper knot, however, it's crap because it keeps coming undone. Okay, so I'll tie double overhand stopper knot, and there we go. So now I've got this. Now I've got a really long distance between here and here, so I can use my clove hitch that I tied to make that distance better for me. And now I can tighten this up. So it's called the old 3-knot system. It's what people used to climb on quite a bit. And the good thing is you don't need carabiners, you don't need any extra gear, you just need a rope and a harness. However, if I wanted to, I could have just tied this Blake's hitch first and then put a knot or a girth hitch or a clove hitch onto a carabiner, clicked it on second. But you don't need a carabiner for this. Now, to set this correctly, I really need to kind of loosely dress it, but then to set it, I really got to pull this down, and it really changes the way the knot looks. So I can slide that up, and I should be able to put my weight into it now. So there's no weight on this one. And now I can lower myself down on this system and this system until I get where I need to go. So it's useful for redirects or anything like that. So now I'm in a position where I could do the work that I need right here. And then to come back up on this, seeing as I've got the right distance, I can pull this up, slide the knot up. Pull this up, slide the knot up. So I can pull it up. And that is the Blake's hitch. Okay, how to tie it incorrectly. And I simply pull down like a prusik to lower it. Whee! Okay, so how can we tie this incorrectly? Well, let's have a look. So right now, let's analyze this knot. Right now, I've got my 4 wraps. The tail comes up out the middle. If we look at this, it slides up and down the rope. The tail actually travels behind the rope it's trying to grip onto. See that? It goes behind it. So a suicide knot, I believe it's called a suicide knot. I tied this one time and my friend looked at it and said, that's a suicide knot. So that's what I call it now. So when you've tied your 4 wraps and you come in underneath here, the problem is you don't go behind that rope. You come up in front of it. So this here looks like a Blake's hitch, but you can see this tail here is in front of this. So this is what I believe is called a suicide knot, and it just doesn't grip as good. So you've got to take note of this bit here, comes around the front and then behind. You don't want it in front and in front. So now let's do a clove hitch. Okay, so let's say I want to mid-tie this branch here. So doing a running bowline with a half hitch won't do because I don't know which way it's going to go. So I want to do a clove hitch. I'm just using my flip line here. What I want to do is go around the branch, and then with my tail, when I go over the second time, I don't go around like that. I cross it over, and then I go around. So when I go around the second time, it comes up between that crossover there. And I can tell it's done correctly because when I pull these up, I've got that dog leg between them. Okay, so that is the clove hitch. I'll do that again real quick. So I want to go over, I want to have a crossover, and it comes up out between that crossover right there. That's your clove hitch. And it should have 2 half hitches on as well. 1 half hitch, 2 half hitches. Okay, then we're good to go. That's your clove hitch. Okay, let's say I want to tie a porter wrap or a device onto this tree here. For this I could use just a section of rigging rope, or I could use what I've got here, a dead-eye sling. Just a long sling with a loop on the end. So I'm going to tie it on, first of all, with a timber hitch. So to do this, I want to get the tail around the tree, get it up to where I want it, and I can pre-install this onto it if I like, if I can. You don't have to, but I'll just girth hitch that on there. So now I've got my device on there. I need to tie what's called a timber hitch. So I'll bring it around, I'll just pass it under so I can hold it. I want it nice and tight. And now this tail, I'm going to proceed to wrap back around the tree. Now remember, I must wrap up. I don't want to wrap down, I want to wrap up. and pull that through. So that's one, and I'll keep working my way around the tree until I've got minimum of 5 wraps around at least half of the circumference. So there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, and if you've got more tail, you can keep going if you like, and there's 5. So I've got some more tail, so I'll go 6, 7, and leave it like that. So that now is tied on there correctly, ready to go. So that's called the timber hitch. It's a very, very good, simple, old school knot that is used every day in trees. I still use it, I prefer it. Now, let's try a different knot. So I've just come over to a smaller tree to be able to do this. Okay, so now I want to tie a cow hitch. So a cow hitch starts like this. The rope goes around the tree, okay? It will look a little bit confusing because I've actually got 2 ropes here because it's a dead-eye sling, but imagine this is just 1 rope. So I want to get this tail, I want to capture my device or my rope, whatever I'm doing, and then I want to go back around the tree. And I want to turn that into a girth hitch. To do that, I simply bring the tail back out there. And now if you look at it, it's essentially a threaded girth hitch, okay? I've got these out here and I've got the tail wrapped around as a girth hitch. It's not quite finished yet. I need to put 2 half hitches. Now, there's many variations of this and I've been through many different ways of doing it. The best thing to do, first of all, is put a half hitch around the device. Okay? That's the first thing. The second thing, I want to put a half hitch around the rope that goes through the girth. So I poke the tail down there, pull it out here, and I've got a half hitch. So I've essentially got 2 half hitches on this cow's hitch. 1 around the device, 1 around the remaining rope. Now obviously I get rid of this tail. Now, there's a couple of people I've seen do this a different way, and I'll be honest, I used to do it a different way. So the reason being, I thought another way was better, was because if you look at this like here, if you do the first hitch around the device, it feels like this could suck through the girth. Okay, the girth could pull over, so I didn't like that. However, when you use this system upside down up the tree and it's for hanging, this is the best option, because what I and a few of my friends were doing were this. Now some of you have probably noticed this happen to you. You think, oh yeah, well, I want that secured. The first thing I want to do is hitch itself. So I was doing this hitch first, around there, because that looks like it can't do anything. And then I'd go around this one. And you can thread that if you like, but I don't have to. So the problem with this method is this single half hitch can just loosen off. And if you're using it like this, it can fall down and jam up everything here or come off. So that's tied in correctly. You do a half hitch around the device and then back around the original tie-in point. So that's your cow's hitch. Very, very, very good, neat and tidy knot.